Okay guys, so in 2.1 we're going to talk about properties of exponents. So when we talk about exponents, that's the little number that's in the air, right? So those are our exponents, and the number that our exponent is above, that is called the base. Okay, so when we're going through these properties, we need to know that terminology. Okay, so the first property is x to the 0 power. Now anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0 to the 0 power, that's just 1. Even if you had like x, y cubed times 20, z, and a whole bunch of stuff inside, but it's all raised to the 0, it just equals 1. Okay, anything to the 0 power is 1. Now our next property is with negative exponents. So that negative sign means you need to jump over the fraction bar for it to turn positive. Okay, so we're going to jump to the bottom, and then our exponent's going to turn positive. So if we look at this example over here, we have 1 over, we're going to jump to the bottom, turns positive, so 3 to the positive 4th power. And then we can just type the 3 to the 4th in our calculator and see what we get. Okay, and 3 to the 4th is 81. So that would be our final answer. You're not going to have to give decimals or anything as answers in this unit. We're only going to do fractions. Okay, so let's look at the next rule. So the next rule is very similar. We've got another negative exponent, but this time it's already in the bottom. So again, we need to jump over the fraction bar, and it's going to come up to the top, and it's going to turn positive. Okay, so it comes to the top, and then we don't have a fraction anymore. Okay, so this example, we're going to bring our 4 squared up top. It turns positive. And then type 4 squared in our calculator, we get 16. Okay, if you give this answer on your self-checks, you're going to get the answer wrong. You have to put it in your calculator and get the number. Okay, if you have a number raised to a number, you have to put it in your calculator. All right, so the next rule we're going to talk about is x to the m times x to the n. So for this rule, these bases have to be the same. Okay, it only works if you have the same base. And let's look at an example over here. Let's say we had x cubed times x squared. Okay, we've got the same base, and x cubed we know is really x times x times x, and x squared is x times x, right? So we're just multiplying all those together. And so now we just have 5 x's multiplying. So really we just have x to the 5th. Okay, so all we're doing is counting up how many x's we have, and our shortcut for that is to add the exponents. Okay, if we do 3 plus 2, we get that 5. And so our shortcut is just adding them. So if we look at this example over here, we have 5 squared times 5 to the 6th. So we're going to have 5, and then we're going to add our exponents. So 2 plus 6, we get 5 to the 8th power. And then we need to type that in your calculator. And if you type that in, you should get 390,625. All right, so let's look at this division one. So again, notice we have the same base here on both of these. Okay, you have to have the same base for this to work. And let's look over here to the side again. Let's say we had x cubed over x squared this time. So again, we know x cubed is x times x times x, and then x squared is 2 x's on the bottom. And if we think about it, x over x, that's just equal to 1, right? Anything divided by itself is 1. So these are going to cancel out to be 1. These are going to cancel out to be 1, and all we have left is just 1x. Okay, so how do we get from our 3, 2 to the 1? Well, we subtracted our exponents this time. Oops, sorry, not 3. So top minus the bottom. Okay, and that's our shortcut for division. So over here, we have 4 to the 8th divided by 4 cubed. So our base is the same. They're both 4. And then we're going to do 8 minus 3, which gives us 4 to the 5th power. And again, we have to type that in the calculator, and we get 1,024. Okay, now let's look at this next rule. This next one, we've got some power raised to another power, right? X to the m power raised to another power, raised to the n power. So maybe we had x cubed squared, right? So it's raised to 2 powers. So that squared right here, that just means times itself, right? 2 times. So really we're doing x cubed times x cubed. And we just have a rule for that. That's right up here, right? We need to add the exponents. So if we add those exponents, we get x to the 6th power. Okay, so if we're coming up with a shortcut, how do we get from 3 and 2 to 6? Well, you multiply them. So you're gonna do your m value times n, and you're just gonna multiply them together. So if we come over here, we've got 7 squared raised to the 3rd power. So we've got a power raised to another power, so we're gonna multiply. So we get 7 to the 6th power. And if you type that in your calculator, you get 117,649. Okay, now this next one is very similar, but this time we've got 2 things inside our parentheses, right? We've got an x and an x squared. Or sorry, a 6 and an x squared. So what's important to think about is whenever something doesn't have an exponent, like the 6, it doesn't have an exponent on it, right? The squared is only on the x. Well, everything always has an exponent of 1. Okay, so if it doesn't have an exponent, really it does, and that exponent is just 1. And so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to multiply it in, but we have to multiply it to every exponent. So it has to go to the 1 and the 2. So we're going to do 6 to the 1 times 3 and x to the 2 times 3. Okay, one of the most common mistakes is forgetting to multiply it to the exponent of the 6. So make sure you remember that. 1 times 3 is 3, and then x, 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, now we can't go any farther with our x to the 6th power, right? Because it's just a variable. But 6 cubed, we can type into our calculator. And if we type that in, we'll get 216, and then our x to the 6th just stays the same. And that would be your answer for that one. So make sure you always distribute that exponent into the parentheses to every exponent inside. Okay, so again, it's the same rule here, but this time we're showing division. Okay, we have a 1 exponent on the x and the y. We want to take this m and it needs to go to every exponent on the inside. So you're going to end up with x to the m power over y to the m power. Here we're just multiplying it inside. So over here we have 3/4 squared. So we need to multiply that 2 into each of those ones. So we get 3 to the 1 times 2 over 4 to the 1 times 2, which is just 3 squared over 4 squared. If we type that in the calculator, we get 9 over 16. Okay, and then we need to check if it simplifies, and you can just do that the same as we were last unit. Type it in your calculator, click math fraction, and hit enter. It'll tell you the most simplified fraction there is. And in this case, we're done there. 9 over 16 is the most simplified we can go. Okay, so this next example combines a couple rules because we've got a negative exponent, right? So first thing we're going to do is multiply in to our 1 exponents. So we've got 10 to the negative 2 over x to the negative 2. Okay, now if you remember negative exponents, we have a rule for that. That means we have to jump over the fraction bar. Okay, so Each of these is going to jump, so the 10 squared is going to jump to the bottom and turn positive, and the x is going to jump to the top and turn positive. Okay, so now that we've got everything positive, we just need to make sure we can evaluate anything we can, and 10 squared we know is 100. Okay, and that would be your answer for that one. Okay, and that's all for your 2.1.